Mic. Camera. Action.
From this day forward, we declare the land north of the Pascagoula Swamps, south of Enterprise, and east of the Pearl River to the Alabama border to be a free state of Jones. And as such, we do hereby proclaim and affirm the following principles. Number one, no man ought to stay poor so another man can get rich. Number two, no man ought to tell another man what he's got to live for or what he's got to die for. Number three, what you put in the ground is yours to tend and harvest, and ain't no man ought to be able to take that away from you. Number four, every man's a man. You can walk on two legs. You're a man.
Right. That's right.
It's as simple as that.
All right. Welcome back to Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day, in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from their focused filmography and consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today, I'm joined by Tim and Amber to discuss McConaughey's performance in Gary Ross's Free State of Jones from 2016. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. Even if both of you have had to adjust my intro slightly. And I cut out the bit about, the history lesson, because that's not fair. Let's not put too much pressure on one half of the pair. How are you both doing? Great to see you both again.
Yeah.
Good to see you too.
Good to see you too. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. And I mean, I wish I knew this history. I feel like we're going to have learned a lot either from this film or from all of the films that we've watched together about McConaughey or starring McConaughey. But yeah, Amber is definitely the American history buff out of the three of us, I think.
No pressure.
To really ramp it up. Yeah, absolutely. But to be fair, I mean, we'll get straight into it. It sounds like not that many people knew about this from their own experience. Abby, you can talk to this, obviously. It sounds like this is a bit of a hidden part of American history in the Civil War anyway, hence the point of this project.
Yeah. So I had done a little bit of research as to why Matthew McConaughey kind of chose to do this role, because I do love that he got into meatier roles like this. And it was because that this was called the Reconstruction era. And that, you're right, that is the part of the after the American Civil War that people don't really remember. It wasn't talked about a lot. So this story was set right in that to show you how it happened. So I do appreciate that about this film, that it kind of delves into that. So I don't know, should I just say the basics of the Civil War is we kind of saw in the film. You've got the North and the South. You've got the Union states and then the Confederacy or the South. And the dividing line, I think, was Virginia, everything below Virginia. So Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, that whole Georgia, Florida, all of that down there was Confederate. Basically wanted slavery. And I'm from Texas, so please don't put me in that category.
You weren't alive at that point.
I wasn't alive, but it still runs rampant in the spirit of things, unfortunately. With undertones, I think, nowadays. Obviously, there's still not slavery happening, but I do feel undertones sometimes. But above Virginia, all the Maine, New York, New Hampshire, all of that, they were fighting to abolish the slavery. That's kind of when Abraham Lincoln came into presidency as well. So he was like, it was interesting because they called him Honest Abe because he taught himself law. So he became a lawyer from he quit school at like 7, grew up he was from Kentucky. So that's right along that line. So he kind of understood the difference between I think he understood what was going on. And his mom died at a young age. So he grew up and said, you know what, I want to change things. So he did. He taught himself the law and became president and wanted to fix this. He had the Emancipation Proclamation, which we kind of see a little bit.
I'm sure there was like a shot of it, wasn't there, in the film?
Yeah, there was like you see the Constitution kind of rolled up.
There's quite a lot of like archaic stills and stuff used in this, isn't there, to support these kind of sections? Yeah.
I kind of thought this film tried to give us a potted history of it. So, because I don't know about you, but like for me, most of my understanding of the American Civil War comes from TV shows and movies.
100%, yeah.
And they all give a little different piece or a little different perspective, but I just kind of thought north-south. I never really thought about what happens where the two meet, or was there anyone stuck in the middle of it, which I think if you want to simplify this film, that's what it is. People stuck in the middle who don't want to be exactly on either side. But I just think that this film also tries to say, well, in case you don't know, you also need to know this bit and that bit. And yeah, I kind of think it gave enough to go in almost blind and catch up. Whether that be a strength or a weakness, we'll come to.
It does feel a bit like a history lesson at times, and like for right or wrong, like we'll get into it. But I am glad for some of these sections because I do always find the stuff in its depictions a little bit confusing. Even in this film at the start, we know McConaughey is our protagonist. We know we're straight in with him and it's a battle and we'll talk about that. But I always find that I'm like, but he's a good guy, but he's on the bad guys team. And I just always find, I know that's the point of this movie, is that he's choosing to reject. But I often find that quite difficult to follow when we get these movies of like, oh yeah, that word means that you're the baddies, really, doesn't it? And that word means that you're the goodies. And so they do help to draw those lines a little bit in this film for us, I think.
Yeah. So I was looking, the timeline on this is it's difficult to follow a little bit in this film. I do know that they bring up the dates, but then they kind of flash back and then they go forward and they don't tell you the dates every time. So that was a little confusing. It's one of my issues with the film, but that's neither here nor there. But anyways, so the Civil War was from 1861 to 1865. So we enter, was it 1863?
That sounds all right.
It's kind of when we came in with this film because the Reconstruction didn't start till after it was over, right? So 1865 to 1877 was that period of time where it was one of the major battles that kind of split the Confederacy, which is what we saw, the Battle of Vicksburg, where they were loading the cannon with silverware and the other side was the actual Confederate army kind of fighting each other. That was a split, and that was happening right towards the end. So anyway, that it's confusing because of the timeline in the film. It just jumps around too much, but
it does. And I find the flash forwards, as I'm going to call them, to like the modern day case quite difficult in terms of structurally they don't seem to fit where they put them, I'm sure. Yeah, but also I agree with that. But like at times it's like suddenly 2 years have passed, but everyone looks the same, and then it's like 7 years have passed, and McConaughey's got a little bit more of a scraggly beard. But some of those time jumps seem to happen really quickly, and it feels like we miss out on some kind of major information at one point. I mean, we're jumping quite towards the end, but sort of 2/3 through the film, they've had these kind of skirmish victories. We have the really cool, like, kind of Wild West shootout scene at the funeral. And then suddenly it's like, oh, we've got to go back to the swamp. And then suddenly it's the Battle of Vicksburg and they've won. And then you're like, whoa. Like, so much must have happened in between here. I was finding it really hard to keep up at that point.
Yes. Siege of Vicksburg was 1863. that was the turning point, and then it ended 2 years later, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it ended when they finally reached Virginia, and the guy that was leading the Confederacy, Robert E. Lee, he was the commander of the Confederate Army. They finally reached Virginia, but he had no troops left because obviously they had this split. They had no food. We saw that was actually like a mandatory law. That part was true, where they were giving 10% of everything they had to the army, is because they didn't have the upkeep for this. He didn't have the funds, but he just kept going. Robert E. Lee was kind of known as like a bit of a bully, I would say, because it didn't matter. Like, he lost. I was listening to something earlier that was talking about how he would lose like 25,000 men and not replace them. He would just keep going.
Right.
Whereas the other side, who was leading the other army? Jefferson Davis, was it? Or no, that was the Confederate. I don't know. There's so many people. Ulysses S. Grant, he was the one that finally won for the Union, but he would replace them. If he lost soldiers, he would get more to replace. But Robert E. Lee just didn't matter. If you died, you died, which is, I think, where we kind of come in. We see that at the beginning of this film, where people are just dying left, right, and center.
They got children coming
Nobody cares, and they're just bringing in children. They took all of our farm. They took over all of our corn, and then they made me enlist. So that was how the South operated.
It's an interesting opening, isn't it? Because it sells you it's going to be this one thing, and it quite quickly decides it's going to be something else. Like, it's quite brutal, it's quite bloody, although it's filmed in an almost kind of digital way that everything looks a little bit fake. I thought definitely was like, oh, that works in Saving Private Ryan, didn't it? So let's do that here. I'm not sure I bought that first section very well until when the nephew comes in and they had kind of an emotional weight to it. Now I'm sort of bought in. But that first bit, I was like, I see what they're trying to do, but I felt a bit removed. I don't know if that was just me, if you guys felt the same.
I felt, I gotta be honest, like, I kind of felt like it was almost, these are the key highlights in his life and the key points that we need to make sure are referenced. And I felt like maybe I could do with fewer of them dwelt on a bit more. Because like you say, the nephew coming in, okay, that's obviously going to go bad. Well, I say obviously going to go badly, but you feel like this is not going to go well. And you know that he's going to try and protect his nephew on the battlefield. But it really is from one scene to the next. You know, it's he's here, and then bye, I'm out of here, almost. Whereas, you know, that kind of hushed conversation in the dark, it doesn't help to build that emotional link. You go, I'm kin. Sorry, I think he says, yeah, you're kin. Of course I'm going to help you. He does,
yeah.
But show it, don't just say it. I'm always show it, don't say it kind of guy.
I do think that this particular movie did a lot of like telling instead of showing us. But I will say, I don't know if you know this, but this is based on a true story. So that the key, I think the reason he kept it in is because that was actually part of the true story of this guy.
That was like his
nephew or his cousin. It was his nephew or cousin. Actually didn't die. This is what do you call this? I don't know, filter this if you have to, but it was because he had found out somebody was molesting him. And then he decided to leave. And I think that almost would have made a stronger connection emotionally if they had kept to the true.
The type of people that are in this army are not the type of people he wants to fight for, which is his point ultimately, isn't it? So yeah, that would have given even more weight. Yeah.
It was like he had found out that. So he comes in, we see in the film that he comes in and says they've, taken all of our corn, all of our wool or whatever they had for the winter. And then now they made me enlist. But in reality, they came in and they plundered everything, but then they obviously raped women and did all of these horrible things, which I know that you can't always portray all of that on film, but
I think that would have been a better.
I wonder if they would have.
I like a better motivation because, what's his name? Newt is. He loves women. He has 2 wives. Spoiler.
Yeah.
But he ends up with 2 wives. So maybe, and also the idea of I've got to bring my nephew back for my sister, so that she can bury him, and I need to be with my family, and let's go and protect this family whose husband's away at war. Maybe saying that he is standing up for the disadvantaged even more, making him more of a Robin Hood might have been an interesting way of doing it, because one of the criticisms of the film is that he's a white savior.
Yeah.
But actually, why not make him a Robin Hood rather than a white savior? If that makes sense. Like, surely that's a little less problematic. I don't know.
No, I mean, there's loads to unpack. It's interesting to say Robin Hood. That was my key kind of thing I wanted to talk about, which we've got there earlier, which is great. This totally is just like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This is almost exactly the middle section anyway. Is almost exactly the same when they're like robbing the rich on the road as they come through, and they're like hiding in the bushes. And then we get I know Robin Hood, obviously, spoilers for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves from many years ago. They save the group once they're going to go and be hanged, but we get the group being hanged in here once they're caught. And it felt like it was like ticking off. Like, oh, do you remember that was really good, wasn't it? That movie, yeah. Oh, we like those scenes when they're robbing people. That's really fun and adventuresome. Let's put that in. And like, this is where this film seems to flit all over the place. At times you get this like Saving Private Ryan bloody stuff. At times you get this kind of history lesson and archaic photos. At times you get Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves adventure. Then you get the final third, which is again comes back to kind of telling you important stuff, telling you about what happened after the war, and fine, we've abolished slavery, but really we haven't, and really there's all these new laws people are making, but it really just jumps all over the place, and it can't quite decide what kind of movie it wants to tell. I don't think it wants to tell 5 movies at the same time.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, that maybe you should have just done one movie and then
a separate movie
for other things that you wanted to tell.
Yeah, it's like a mini series in 2 hours, really, isn't it? Like we could have had episode 1, the war. Episode 2, the journey back to the family. Episode 3, standing up against the it felt like that probably would have been better for this story.
If you did it again, you do it as a miniseries. Absolutely. It'd be that would be a no-brainer. But I've got to say, you've opened up the door there to the fact that they tell a story based in the, 1870s?
60s.
1860s. And then we get something, a lot more modern day, where we see these problems that are still going on in the state. And that link between the two is such a major spoiler. And the way it's brought in is the briefest of brief scenes. And so early on that I was like, why tell me that now?
Yeah, so with the link to his great grandson.
Yeah, I just thought that it was so early on in the film that we hadn't yet seen even a friendship fully form, let alone what was going to come and make that important. And I just thought, oh, you've just told me the rest of this guy's story in one scene. It just felt really like premature. And that kind of put me up, like rubbed my back up the wrong way for about 20 minutes. I honestly was like, okay, how often are we going to come back to this? Are you going to make me like that shot that was, 1 minute long, if that? It was so brief. And I was like, just cut that out and bring that in later. Sorry, my editor brain switched on at that point, and it just really rubbed me up the wrong way, because I liked what it wanted to tell, that, like you said, that these things have not really gone away, that this problem persisted. And the fact that it affected the same family, that's an amazing coda to this film. But the way it was brought in just did not work for me at that point.
I completely agree. What did you think, Amber?
Yeah, and it's funny because I had seen it before. I knew that was coming, and so I didn't tell him anything. But I said, "It's just you might notice that the film was a little discombobulated, like just is a little." Because I knew it was going to bug him.
It really bugged me.
Yeah. He's really all about the editing. So, yeah, that was annoying because it was a spoiler, and it also we had that tiny blip of a scene and then nothing for like an hour.
Yeah.
So you forget, by the time they show it again, you forgot, like, oh yeah, where and what is this? And
we're getting really invested in the characters we're following in the 1870s, 60s. And I did not, it didn't transfer.
No, I agree. Yeah.
That feeling of being interested in these new characters, like you could have got me really interested in them, because there is more romance in those two than there was in Newt and his two acts. So, you know, you could have got us more invested in them, because we would have been like, oh, here's a man who really loves his wife and is willing to stand up in court to say so. And, you know, maybe make the link of, because it did try to at the end. Again, sorry, I'm jumping to the end. No. Like the way it put up the text on screen saying about what Newt did for Rachel to try and give her some kind of agency. Okay, great. Make that link. Again, don't harder. Just tell it. Yeah, don't just tell it. And hit harder. That's a whole other story of like, this guy's in court. But if we go back generations as to why, like, frame the film that way. Yeah.
So, I mean, sorry, Tim. Yeah, so much text. I mean, too much text. This maybe like this. Every time we're like, I'm not sure people are getting this. Here's a bit of text on the screen. Here's a bit of text on the screen. But yeah, I think there were so many different ways to do this, and I'm sure all of us could think of a better way and could fix it. Even if it was like a bookend, but you don't reveal that it's Newton Knight's relative. You just reveal like, shit, this is still going on. Like this many years later, people are still being persecuted. Then you cut that, and then you do the whole film, and you come back, and then you learn what it's also his like great grandson. That's unbelievable. Like there's so many different ways to do it, other than, like you said, in 1 minute, revealing it 40 minutes in. When he's just had that first meeting with Rachel, isn't it? Pretty much.
Oh, it was almost instantly. It's come over how to
get better, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject. I just was thinking too, that law in Mississippi was still around. It only ended in 1967.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? So I wish they almost would have like gone further, like show.
It's 100 years span.
How much it's still.
Yeah.
So if it only ended in 67, okay, that's
100 years. We're talking like over 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how, even though that law ended in 67, you can imagine, okay, well, just because a law ended overnight doesn't mean these people's attitudes are going to change. Of course.
Yeah.
So Mississippi is kind of like, they call it the, what do they call it? It's like this, the southest state, the southest of the southern states, because they were the worst for laws and for this attitude that we see in the film. Because it's still,
but like
perpetuated for such a long time. Yeah.
And I can remember, you know, when I was studying TV and film at university and looking at the fact that interracial relationships were still not being shown on TV for decades, even after. Amber and I were talking about earlier. I think it was Star Trek that was the first to do it, but they could only get away with it because someone's an alien and we're in space. Yeah. And that even many years later, it was still surprising to see. And I was studying in the early 2000s, so this is kind of an amazing thing that there's such an important story being told here. Well, there's two important stories being told here. I think that's the problem. And the link between them is so interesting, but it's kind of buried by revealing that so early on in such a insignificant way, in a way, if that makes sense. That
it does,
just the way it's revealed. I just think it doesn't. It just spoils both stories telling.
We kind of know where the Rachel and Newton story is going to go. Do you know what I mean? It's really obvious. Like they're not subtle about their interactions and their little looks and the little touches, even if it's just like a hand to a hand, all this kind of stuff when they first meet. But still, we'd quite like to see that journey, really. We'd like to see how we get there and what happens with him and his wife. And so, yeah, it does. It kind of just takes any of the kind of anticipation, any of the kind of build up. I'm struggling for language now as well. We're all doing it. Yeah, it just really pulls it out from underneath you. So you almost just kind of want it to just, let's just get to it then. Just show us them together now. Then you might as well just show us because you've told us. It is a problem, yeah, and particularly when you've got Kerry Russell as the wife, who amazing actress in her own right, really beautiful. I mean, I get why McConaughey would desert to get back to Kerry Russell. It makes perfect sense. So we need to understand a bit more about how all of this will come about, and yeah, all of that's dissipated, really, isn't it? In this poor choice.
Yeah. Something else that I noticed on a positive note.
Yeah, we should do some positives because there is plenty.
Yeah, I do. So I kept noticing Newt's like the way he was with everyone. He could command a whole, army. Yeah. But he did it in such an effortless way. I felt like, obviously, we don't know Newt from real life. He was just a story from the past we can reference, but I can really appreciate the way that Matthew McConaughey put his all into this role because he did have that same. I think McConaughey himself has that charm. We've talked about that before on different films that he had his little rom-com era, but it was because he's got this natural charm. But in this film, I think that was the way he channeled it. It was the charm, but he channeled it into like this leader role. And I think that that's really true to who he is in real life. Because he, if you look at things he does with, if he goes home to Texas, he will coach a football team for a weekend, or he just does stuff like that is in a very leadership role. And I thought that this was the first role I had seen him in that really hit that home for him. So I was really glad to see that.
Yeah, I can see also why you'd want him for this role. Like he's got, like Amber says, like the charm that you can say, all right, I can see why two women fell in love with him. I can see why friends would want to, follow his lead or take his advice, or, how he could stand in a room with people who are ready to shoot him and talk them down even momentarily. I can see all that. I feel like I could have done with even more charm from him. Like, I can see what you mean about like the leadership with the army, but I don't know that he was as charming with the ladies. I don't know. I just felt like there's just a whole other film there about like, maybe it's a love triangle film and maybe that's not the story they needed to tell. But I felt like there's a whole other dimension to him as a family man that kind of is also having to be balanced in this. And I just don't know whether we could have done with even more of that as well.
Can I interject?
You disagree?
And disagree. Only because this was of the time.
Okay.
I think then, even though he was a good man of the South, like clearly we see all these other men that were nothing to write home about, but he, being the best, still was in this society of they don't actually care that much about women, and men kind of own the world at that point.
So maybe it was true to life.
I think it was true to life. I see what you mean, because you're right. They kind of set this up. The court scene was like about this love story and how they were forbidden to be together. But it's like the other story that was being told was actually of this time period, not really about the love story. The love wouldn't
really. So maybe it was.
I don't think we would have ever.
Maybe
seen
it was
that.
a marriage of convenience more than a truly meeting of minds.
It did say that he really was in love with this woman named Rachel, who was a slave, and that he even was buried with her, and that was like never done.
Okay.
So I think I think that's why they tried to pull it in, but I don't know. I think it was very accurate to the time period.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, why McConaughey did this makes total sense, doesn't it? At this point in his career, it feels like something a bit different again, a step on. Interstellar again, we know what a success that was, but he's not kind of he's taking orders, isn't he? So I like the idea of he's becoming the leader here. It does walk that line, and I don't know, I'm a bit bored of people throwing around certain labels for things, and I think white savior trope, and fine, I get it, but also, as you said, Amber, this is based on a true story, so what are we supposed to do? Not tell the true story? This was a guy who was, it seems, fairly forward thinking. He was able to look past race and look past kind of class hierarchy and be somewhat thoughtful towards women. And although I did read some stuff about him that is a little bit unsavory as well, and I was doing my own bit of research about the continued relationships he had with some people, a little bit Woody Allen is what I'll say. The real life guy, obviously.
Yeah.
Let's make that really clear. You tonight, definitely not Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting one, and it's hard finding the balance. And I just think that, again, that's where, I read that Gary Ross spent 2 years reading and preparing before he even started writing the script. And it feels like he's absorbed so much information and he so wants to tell all of these different stories, and he's not quite sure how he's going to fit them all in together. But yeah. I'm convinced. I forgot it's McConaughey again. I'm locked into the character. I'm believing it's him as Newton Knight. I'm just believing I'm watching this person's story. He's done such a good job of this era, whether the films have been on the TV series has been the mega success, or whether it's been, the last couple I've done now have been really big financial and also quite critically disappointing. But he has lost himself in the roles. All those mannerisms and tics that we know of him from a decade ago just don't exist anymore. He's just a person who's acting and wants to become somebody else and do what's right for the story, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah. And can I also add something? You were talking about the label thing, and I think that's true. We do see a lot of that in other films, but this one, there's a line where Moses is trying to go get his son back, and he's riding alongside him, and he says, "They will kill you. They'll arrest me." And he repeats that over and over and over, and it kind of rang true that okay, I understand we don't love that trope of the white savior, but also it couldn't have got done if he wasn't white. And I feel bad. I don't want to play into that Confederacy of the South thing, but I do think him being white did help their cause a lot. He got a lot. He was able to do a little bit more. He wasn't killed on sight. Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like the film was aware of the fact they were portraying a white savior. I think it didn't feel cynical, something like Green Book, which was also fine, but came into heavy criticism. It knew what it was trying to do, and I think, Amber, as you said, because it's trying to tell us the history. It's trying to show us how things really were. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit of an unfair label for this movie, because of the circumstance of the story it's trying to tell.
I think so.
But definitely. And I think in a different year and with some tweaks, we would have been talking about this as an award contender. Because if you look at the cast, we've got McConaughey and we've got Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
Both Oscar winners, and, very deservedly so. You've got this American historical tale being told, very well rendered on screen, good costumes, well shot, whatever you want to, whatever aspects you want to say, good score. You've got a director who's been lauded for his work in the past. And yet it got none of that, not even a sniff. But then you've just referenced Green Book, which I still think is an absolutely astounding fact that won Best Picture at the Oscars. I do not know how. I do not know how. It's one of my biggest bugbears. But how this film kind of falls a little flat emotionally in certain aspects kind of surprises me, because it feels like all the pieces are there, and this story is compelling, and I rarely say this, but I would actually be very interested in reading a biography.
Mhm.
Like if there was a really nicely detailed biography, I think that would be a gripping read, to tell the story of this family and all those little details that you've both been, able to bring out that the film didn't fully focus on. He's sounding more and more interesting by the minute. So I'm just kind of surprised that people weren't more invested in this film finally getting to screen.
Yeah, I mean, the makers themselves have had a lot to say, haven't they? 2016, we're deep into kind of superheroes, aren't we, at this point? So that's always everyone's excuse. Well, we're making a proper film and everyone else is just making silly superhero movies. McConaughey's on a bit of a downward trend at this point, isn't he? Unfortunately, sort of True Detective and then Interstellar really are kind of the peak. And then over this next kind of couple of years, next couple of movies, we're sort of seeing him struggle again a little bit in terms of finding an audience and finding movies that are successful for him. I don't know, like what else is going on in 2016 around the world? Are people just not interested in this kind of? When was the last Civil War film before this? Or sort of films this wants to tie into. It wants to be that kind of epic, doesn't it? So I'm sort of being a little bit derogatory and pithy about comparing it to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is a film I love, by the way. But even things, like The Patriot or The Last Samurai or Last of the Mohicans, all of those fit into this kind of epic adventure war genre, don't they? And this is way below all of those in terms of quality.
Well, just a couple of years before, we had like 12 Years a Slave, which is obviously,
good point. Yeah,
that's by a black director with a black lead telling a story that is again one of those books where you're like, okay, this is we cannot put this book down, and this has been a long time getting this story to screen. So I'm kind of thinking maybe that's why.
And Lincoln as well, right? The Spielberg Lincoln
very
was
close.
Not long out after this, but long before this as well, wasn't it? Yeah, good point.
So I suppose once you put it into the context of those that were award darlings, maybe this falls even flatter because it's got those unfair comparisons.
Yeah, the other thing I thought of was 2016. First, let me preface this by saying I am politically neutral and I don't have no views about any of this, but could have possibly played a factor in the world is that was the first time that Trump got elected. Was 2016.
Okay.
So I don't know if that played into people not paying attention or maybe also viewing this kind of film as too close to maybe how his views were or are. I don't know.
Or too woke, maybe. It's woke because it's a white guy helping out women and black people. So maybe it's not MAGA enough. I don't know. That's interesting.
Maybe it's where all those terms, I suppose it's the year those terms originated, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's actually really, putting it into the historical context.
World view. I'm just kind of zooming out a little bit. I wonder if that had anything to.
Right. So I mean, internationally, this did horrible. Yeah. I mean, only 25 million around the world, but most of that came from the States. It did nothing anywhere else, really. That's fascinating, isn't it? You look at all those industry and political context. That's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So we had Django as well, hadn't we? When was Tarantino's Django out?
A few years before that, maybe. Yeah.
So all of those different movies playing with this story in their own ways and potentially more interesting and challenging ways, plus what's going on in the world politically, it sort of just really dropped at the wrong time, didn't it?
Is this one of those films that just gestated too long? Really, they said, we want to make this. Let me get the Hunger Games out of the way, and then I'll focus my energy. Because Hunger Games was 2012.
I think that's how he got this made, though, isn't it? Because he made it one for them, one for me kind of deal, right?
But this is the thing. If he'd done it earlier, this would have been actually in that wave of these stories being told of the Civil War era, which I think is. I don't think we had one for a little while now. Again, have we?
Sorry, what?
We haven't had another story of this era in the last couple of years. So I just feel like maybe it was to try and catch up with that wave of all those films we've just named, but he was actually just too late because he was too busy with something else first.
Yeah, that's
by
interesting.
The time this made it to screen, everyone's like, no, we've heard we've heard this era told, we've seen it told, we've enjoyed those perspectives more. But there's still a family drama here that spans 100 years.
Yeah.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it was 10 years in the making, so that makes perfect sense. It just, it feels like, unfortunately, they just missed their moment, right? Yeah, that was really interesting. But I think things like, him doing the Hunger Games, this is 50 million for this movie. So to get that kind of budget, he had to prove himself to be a director that was bringing in money. Getting McConaughey signed up, I'm sure, made a big difference. Looking at what he'd been in recently, the amount of money that had been making, he would have been in this before the slight decline started. He would have acted in it, so it probably got sold off his name, got the budget of his name as well. So yeah, it's a real shame. But then when you think of those comparison points, they do all have something that makes them kind of feel a little bit more, it feels like they stand out from the crowd a little bit more, doesn't it, than this does. This just sort of slips in and exists and is fine. Really, it's fine. Whereas Django has the Tarantino edge, and Lincoln has the Daniel Day-Lewis and Spielberg edge. 12 Years a Slave has the perspective that it is presenting, and that being really important. And here, and not having that has Brad Pitt, doesn't it? Who's arguably the white savior in that movie as well. But
yeah, but look, thankfully only for 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, not the main character. Yeah,
but you've also then got Steve McQueen, a black director, directing that, who went on to get accolades that very few black directors have been awarded before. So yeah, maybe they all had something that really helped them along, whereas this just, it feels like a story that absolutely needs to be told and absolutely someone wants to get to screen. And I'm sure maybe a load of people have tried in the past, but then I don't know, somehow it just feels too little too late. I don't know. But I did struggle to get emotionally invested, but I was intellectually invested, which is really strange.
And I think the things we've discussed are the reasons why, this it's erratic, isn't it? These erratic time jumps, this erratic placement and editing of certain scenes just doesn't allow you to fully kind of invest in the story. It is true, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel emotionally invested in him or either of the women or his family at all, but I did really appreciate his friendship with Moses. I did feel that connection was, it's funny, almost even stronger on screen, because we saw when, spoiler alert, when he got killed, we see how visibly upset he is and how he just hugs him and he can't wrap his mind around it. It's awful. That was crushing to me.
I could have done twice as much of them
for that.
Yeah, because that relationship felt like it's the two of them leading. Yes, one is white, so therefore some people will listen. But I thought that partnership, the way that they got on, the way that opened his maybe perspective as well, I thought that was compelling, that was interesting. And those two actors, I mean, come on.
Wow, yeah.
You couldn't ask for better.
There must be a TikTok out there of the way that they look at each other in this movie. Somebody must have done a supercut somewhere of look. I wish somebody looked at me the way McConaughey looks at Mahershala Ali in I mean, that is the true love story at the center of this. You're right. So it should have been pushed a bit further forward, shouldn't it?
Yeah, if that had been twice as much and really developed, I think that could have done it. That would have been really nice. Yeah. Because you're right, the Moses aspect of it, his family being reunited with his family, I was invested with that the moment he said my family's in Texas. I was like, I know someone else's family's in Texas. But I thought, no, that's okay, that's interesting. Is he ever going to find them? And when they come in later, it's very run across and meet you in the middle of a field kind of vibes. But I was like, actually, I would have loved this to have been far more elevated. And again, you wonder whether, give it another year or so, because I don't think Mahershala Ali had won his Academy Award at that point.
No, it's one of his first roles, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so then you kind of go, well, hang on then. If you told this story 2 years later again, would you have gone, oh, we need to increase Mahershala Ali's role because he's Mahershala Ali? I don't know. There's just something here that's just not quite, I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite ideal.
Yeah. You think of like, go on, Amber, please. You go.
No, sorry. You've been wanting to talk for a while. Sorry.
I should be letting you guys talk. I'm here to facilitate you, so you go.
I was thinking too about The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I don't know if y'all know about that story. That was actually, I think that was written pre Civil War, but same themes, and it was the same river. So kind of, we talked about the Mississippi River being kind of a big deal. We talked about it when we talked about Mud. How like that was like their highway system, like, and these kids could even drive. That was kind of like their freedom, and we see that a lot in this movie. Is that river, that swamp, where it starts, was like freedom for them. And I wish we had stayed there more, like really develop that too, because that was such a beautiful theme to see that was where the freedom was. As long as you could get to that river, you could probably make it, because they can't get their cavalry in there. They can't get you, basically.
And I thought that maybe it was because it was true to reality and true to the way things unfolded. But the way that they're like, right, we're going to have to go and make a stand at the swamp, and they all go back to the swamp, and then there was no stand at the swamp.
Yeah, so annoying.
Which was it really felt like we're building up to this, and this is going to be, like Amber says, like, this is going to save you. The river's here going to save you. Then going back to your, it's like Robin Hood back into the forest. You're in your area. When they come into it, you've got the upper hand, and I'm like, oh, good, okay, this is going to come to a head. But it doesn't, and maybe that's exactly how things played out in real life. But the way it builds it up in the film, I almost felt like, oh, you just got me excited for a minute for no reason. Like, I would have loved to have seen them kind of have to face people down again one more time. That would have been nice.
I mean, the shot is, it's almost kind of, it's like the train of people, isn't it, walking across and going to stop. It's almost like that Lord of the Rings moment, as they're going over the hills. It's like, like you're all hyped up, aren't you? You're so ready to go. You're right, and just nothing happens. Suddenly, it's 2 minutes of a battle in a town that they seem to win really easily, because again, they've cut so much out. Yeah, it's another one of those issues that we keep coming back to, isn't it? Just these small, well, actually big choices, but that make quite a difference about how you are able to connect with the movie and the characters. And there's just these constant kind of missteps, isn't there, throughout, that keep pushing you away really from being able to connect fully. The only thing I was going to say about the characters was that idea of, like, Tim, you mentioned, I thought that was a really interesting point about when Moses reconnects with his family, and how that's a really interesting counterpoint to what Newton's going through, because his wife's chosen to leave him and take his child away. And again, that child seems to suddenly accelerate in age. It's like a sitcom where it's a baby one day and it's 6 the next. But then when they're reunited, he's just not really bothered, and he's made no effort to go and find them. And again, so what an interesting counterpoint to see, like, why does he feel that way? Moses feels that way. Or why is he not affected by Moses's love for his family and the want to reconnect? Or again, there was so much to play with there that just feels like perhaps it's on the cutting room floor. Perhaps
I think there's a lot on the cutting room floor. I think there's two things: is that maybe the budget. You know, yes, it was a big budget that it never made back, but it's not big enough.
No, agreed.
You're trying to tell 100-year span with a not insignificant sized cast, with costuming and production design that's going to cost you loads. So maybe it was a case of, we can't spend more on that, and so we can give you glimpses of things. But also, it's just the fact that we have this 100-year span, and it wants to give us all of the pieces, but actually give me less of it. Like, give me a piece of his story and more of his great grandson's story. That's the way to do it. Or I don't know, it just felt like you're giving me lots of little bits, whereas I could do with a few big bits.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it was, again, it's all fascinating stuff.
I think we're all coming from the same angle, though, isn't it? The trouble is, like, there is things to like in this movie. There is McConaughey's performance, there is Mahershala Ali and their connection. there is the production design, and filming on location is great, and there is lots to say. But I think we keep coming back to the same place, that we wanted it to be great, and it just wasn't quite, and it just kept doing things that stopped us sort of being fully invested in what's going on, which is a real shame. I think we've all come to it with the right perspective in that we want to be involved, we want to like these characters, we want to learn, we want to be educated as well as entertained here. And unfortunately, it's just not quite achieved on any of the levels, which makes it sound like a worse movie than it is. This is, right down the middle of the road for me, kind of 3-star, perfectly fine, not offensive. I found my concentration and just waning a little bit around the middle. And then suddenly we had that big Wild West shootout, and I was like, whoa, okay, now I'm back in. But it's just kind of is. It's just fine, which maybe this is not good enough for a movie like this. Yeah,
I would agree. I think I found myself feeling how long the movie was. It did. It felt forever long, and I hardly ever feel that way about movies. But I felt a lot of dead time. Watching people walk through the woods and watching people be in the woods, which is nice, but move the story along a little bit more. It is what it is, and it's fine. I think I agree. It's perfectly mid.
And we're now in the era of prestige television again, aren't we? Yeah. And I don't think when this was made, anyone would have had a genuine conversation to say, "Shall we make this as a series?"
No,
but a 4-part series, would have been amazing. Because it felt like 4 hours, but actually I would have preferred if it had been 4 hours.
Yeah.
And give me 4 episodes where 2/3, 3/4 of it is the old stuff, and the other part is how does it tie into the new stuff. That would have been much more interesting. And then the final episode being the court case or something. Show me the great grandson getting arrested. Do that. Build my interest in that part of the story. I actually would have loved that. I think that would have been great. And they've done a lot now in the last few years of these mini series of the American early presidents and this era. This would have been a great mini series.
Yeah, and I think it's something like Shogun. Did you guys watch that? Obviously a very different story in a very different time period, but
that's the right vibe, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've done that kind of level of production, because this story is like we've said, it's got so much to it, so many little parts, so many interesting aspects, but instead of it being a 2-minute scene because it's an interesting little bullet point, give it the 20 minutes it deserved. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's still relevant, isn't it? You said, what was it, the 1960s when that law was finally repealed in Mississippi, and we're another 60 years on from that. And, we haven't moved another 60 years forward in what a lot of this is talking about. So it is still relevant. There is still space for this story, I think, for somebody who wants to get into the intricacies and make that kind of prestige, like you say, 4-6 episode long TV series. I think there'd be an audience for it as well.
They've used exactly who they should have had. So it feels really sad that McConaughey was a really good casting, especially when you see the picture of, I'm going to guess that was really what he looked like. I'm like, okay, McConaughey works. And Mahershala Ali, you're not going to get much better actors than this. And Gugu Mbatha-Raw, you're not going to get much better actors than that. But now they've used them in the film. It's like, they would have been ideal for a series. So
yeah, and we know McConaughey and Mahershala Ali are not opposed to being in series. Actually, and Gugu Mbatha-Raw, they've all been in high-level TV series, haven't they, of their own at certain times in their careers? Yeah, that's an interesting question, though. Fantasy casting, who would it be? Who'd be your replacement for these actors in the 2026, 2027 TV version?
Whoa.
I'm not asking you to answer that right now. I was just
going to say,
leave that in the comments, people.
I'll get back to you on the
engagement.
That's not fair to put you both on the spot there, but it's worth thinking about, isn't it? Who could pick up those roles would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
So I feel like, is this a part of the McConaughey story that you've been able to find deeper interviews on? Because it feels to me like a part of it that you could easily miss. And I wonder if he doesn't care to talk about it much either because of way it was received?
Yeah, not massively. I read a couple of interviews that he did and watched a couple of junkety stuff, but I tend to steer clear of those because they never give you anything interesting, to be honest. And this whole period of his life in Green Lights and the autobiography, he just kind of skims over. He just kind of says, yeah, I was in this and this and this and this. And acknowledges the fact that actually they weren't successful. So I was in these films over this period and they all really struggled. And I'm trying to redefine and refine myself again. So yeah, it's an interesting one because also I'm about to move into a couple of animated movies next. So he takes another kind of step in a different direction and steps back and thinks about what else he can do. And I mean, that's a great thing about him. He's always redefining himself. He's always willing to try something new, to consider what an audience might want from him. Like, it feels like, I've been saying this in every episode recently, so people are probably bored of hearing it, but it feels like we're getting the McConaughey part 2, doesn't it? The kind of things that he's been in recently, getting back in those really kind of prestigious awards buzzy type movies again. He's kept me interested. He's kept me on a bit of a roller coaster, really, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think though I really appreciate his, I don't know if tenacity is the right word, but I know that these films all kind of flopped and he acknowledged that, but I also wonder if this is a very important part still of his filmography. That's part of how you find out. I think that his draw for this was somewhat true to himself still, because he's from the South. This is a very big topic, especially in schools. Like, I'm sure that really was a big draw for him, that nobody talks about this era. Nobody talks about what happened right after the Civil War. Everybody cares about what happened in it, but not after it. So I think that this was still like crucial to his filmography. That I'm so glad that you are still, even though these are almost bummers to watch, that it's nice that you're still going through it, because this still did build his character, I think.
And I wonder if, when it was pitched to him, on paper, the people involved, the cast, the crew, the story, this sounds like it's going to be an absolute prestige picture. Like, I think probably when he signed on, he thought this was going to be an absolute high point in his McConaughey.
Yeah.
If you told anyone else about it, you'd be like, well, that's going to be a winner for him. But it weirdly wasn't. It's
Oscar number 2, right? Yeah.
There's every reason it could have been.
And his performance is, I can't remember what word you use, but I agree. That he's intense, he's committed. Like, he is this character, isn't he? Again, he's still carrying that kind of post Dallas Buyers Club physique, which suits what's going on here. He's not quite back to buff McConaughey yet, so that perfectly suits the character he's playing here, I think, which is good. He goes full greasy hair, full scraggly beard. He hides that usual kind of charm and physical charm behind the look that's required for the character.
And the intensity, actually, it kind of took me by surprise, because you've mentioned Saving Private Ryan a couple of times, and some of the battle scenes do have that level of like visceral. War should never look lovely. It shouldn't. It should be horrific. Amber will laugh at the number of times I jump at explosions and gunshots. But it shouldn't be nice, and it is not nice. And then there were some very brutal, hand-to-hand fisticuffs, strangly moments.
Yeah.
And so his level of intensity is really dialed up. His performance is by no means weak, and the material here is pretty tough.
As you said, you would stand and listen to him, and you would follow him. And then when he's in like the scenes when he finds Moses dead, or like as you just mentioned, when he strangles the leader of the Confederates, these are moments that really totally sell you on what's happening in that scene, aren't they? You totally buy that is what's going on in this character. And that's a real release for him when he manages to finally kill this guy. He could have shot him, and he chooses a different way. And the scene with Moses is very, very moving, isn't it, Amber? I think you said, that's the the most moving part of the film, and I completely agree. Almost has that kind of gladiator moment, when he finds his wife and child dead, and you've got the full Russell Crowe snot and the close, the close up on it, and the emotional intensity, and that's when we all suddenly were like, "Wow, Russell Crowe, what an actor!" McConaughey's given that kind of performance in that moment with Moses, isn't he? So, he's not weak in it at all. I think it's what's going on around him, unfortunately, which has let him down somewhat. So, like we said there, Tim, about this idea of looking at some paper, looking at Gary Ross as the creative force. Yes, he's made The Hunger Games, which was a massive hit, but he's made Pleasantville. He's made these other films which are
great,
intelligent, and are doing something which is challenging and is original and is different. And he probably thought that's what he was going to get out of this experience. And I'm sure he did get out of the experience. But the finishing is just a bit too choppy.
Yeah. The editing.
It maybe does fall down on the editing.
Yeah. Anything you guys have got left to say before I delve into Letterboxd?
Sorry, I have one last thing.
Please.
Just that his character, I don't know if this was true to the life story of this guy, or if this was just an added nuance of the film, the way that he chose to play this character. But I also thought it was kind of fascinating that he, at every point in the film, kept trying to fight other people's battles. That it was like, okay, you could see he was kind of winding down to the war when we first come in on him, but then his nephew or whoever that was, okay, he's gonna go all the way home to handle that. Then he sees his son is sick. Okay, he's gonna go handle that immediately. It was never. I did appreciate that about his character, that he never really focused on himself. And Moses, I'm gonna go. I'll fight for you. Run all the way to town with you. It was always for someone else. And there was a line in the film that talked about, I think it was the lady who played Rachel. Yes, where she said, "You can't win this whole war by yourself." And I think that was very true to his character, the way that he played that, whereas he just wanted to win everybody's battles for them. Like, he wanted to be that leader, and I think he was a good one. It was just a little lost in the editing, but I don't know. I guess I could have said that earlier.
No, I think but I think what's nice about ending this little bit of the podcast is that you kind of see that growth in the character, don't you, as he goes. I think you've just said that really well, Amber, about that idea. I'm going to be your little button on it. I'm going to be your conclusion to your really well argued thesis. That we start off with Newton being that kind of world weary guy, and then he's sort of invested, and then he's more. We see him grow and grow and grow and grow across the movie to be that person that everyone needed him to be, where he would walk into town with all of his black friends in a protest, and then try and make sure that the vote goes the right way, and constantly be putting himself in potentially harm's way in order to do the right thing. But he had to get there as a person, didn't he? And I think that is something the film does depict well, and McConaughey plays that really well in order to understand why Newton Knight became this kind of almost like folklore person amongst these communities, amongst the Free State of Jones, because of the way that he had grown into that role, perhaps.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, a long button. Sorry about that. I mean, don't you hate when you read an essay and the conclusion's too long?
No. That was great.
What do you reckon? Letterboxd?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever delve into it, or whether you look at other people's stuff. I try not to too much anyway but I have to for this, obviously. I always find the ones with McConaughey in, but there's some really differing opinions on this movie. Some really quite strong one way and quite strong the other. So we'll see what you think of some of these. First one is from Ada Taylor, and they say, so profoundly not bad that it's kind of not good. Free State of Jones is more history lesson than historical drama. Oh my God, the expository title cards. McConaughey is great, but when is he not? Maybe in Ghost of Girlfriend's Past. I haven't seen Ghost of Girlfriend's Past. Sort of wish I'd watched Ghost of Girlfriend's Past instead.
I mean,
To be fair,
the title cards is a good pick up there. That's true. You know that a film is going to be something interesting when it's got a lot of title cards to me. And so, yeah, they're right. It is just so mid that it's kind of shocking how not shocking it is.
Yeah. But definitely, I mean, definitely not anywhere near as bad as Ghost of Governance Past. That is not.
Oh, no. You've done that one, haven't you?
I've done that one, yeah. Your time is much, even on this like 4-hour, 2-hour movie, your time is better spent here than it is on Ghost of Governance Past. That's
But if people want to know about Ghost of Governance Past, I wonder if there's a really good podcast episode they can listen to.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure somebody's covered it somewhere on a better podcast. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Gareth Manuel says, not sure why there were so many sniffy reviews. Yes, it's a little long and quite talky, but it's an interesting story. I'm not sure the juxtaposition between the 18th century Mississippi and the late 1940s really works, or more bluntly, cut right. Matthew McConaughey is excellent and keeps your attention throughout.
I'd go with that.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. Just as always, said what we've just said in over an hour in like 3 sentences. But, you know.
And they're right. You know, there's no need to be sniffy about this film because it's very competently made. It's very well acted. It's a story that you can see why they want to put it on screen. It's just something in the execution makes you feel like, you know, there is more to be told and we're just not getting it. Or there's a better way of telling it, and we definitely didn't get that.
Yeah.
All right, one last little short one to leave you with. Callum says, the reconnaissance is over. That's it.
Is that how you feel, Jack?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously it's not come out yet, but Sea of Trees is the episode before this. That has its merits too, but feels like a bit of a step in the wrong direction. And then here, again, you know, we're really mid. I think I'm about to hit another phase where we're going up. I'm doing this, which is no good to anybody on an audio medium. I'm doing my hands up and down. It's up and down this next period, I think. And I've not seen a lot from this next period, so it's going to be really interesting for me. This was my first watch, Tim, as I know it was yours for this movie. And the majority of the ones I'm about to watch are first watches, which says a lot. Like I'm choosing not to watch them actively when they first came out.
Yeah. And I think you're about to have like a smorgasbord of different genres and tones. And it maybe feels like Matthew McConaughey feeling like, okay, I did the thing that should have worked. Now let's try the things that might not work and see what sticks.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting way to think about it as we move forward through these next few films, because there's some interesting ones out there and ones which are really reviled, right? You know, like The Dark Tower, like people really don't like that film.
Wow. Okay.
I can't wait for you to fast forward 9 years. The Last Bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, it's only about 10 movies, so he's not been massively prolific over the next decade. So it isn't going to take too long to get there.
Does he talk about that in the book? Just like, because you said he kind of like mentions Free State of Jones and some other things, but kind of just like, yeah, they didn't do great. Like, what's the kind of next thing he starts talking about in his book?
That it really is. Like I'm right now at this point of his career, there's sort of about 50 pages left. And most of it in the autobiography is about him and his life and Camilla and the kids and thinking about that kind of next phase and what that's going to mean for him. So he doesn't really talk very much about films he's in at all. He sort of comes back a bit more to like reflecting on the importance of Dallas Buyers Club and getting the Oscar, or the importance of this. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder if we'll get, I keep saying again, sorry to everybody that's listening, we'll get Green Lights 2 at some point that will maybe cover these movies in a bit more depth. Be interested to see once he feels like I've hit another point in my career. Let's reflect on how I got here.
Yeah.
Or maybe because that's kind of where his book ends. Maybe that's kind of why we've not seen him in so much. Like maybe he is just right now in the phase of his life where he's focusing on his kids and his wife and
maybe
life.
He put everything into some of these films must be so disappointing when they don't turn out as you hope.
Yeah.
And then he thought, right, well, let's go change my focus in life.
Yeah. I think all of that's true. And then, when you look at those movies which we consider the McConaissance, I mean, you're not going to get a better run, are you? I mean, if you consider like the Lincoln Lawyer being maybe the kickoff, and then you guys came in for Bernie, and even the ones aren't successful, like creative successes for him. You've got Killer Joe, The Paperboy, and then Mud, Magic Mike, Dallas Buyers Club, Wolf of Wall Street, True Detective, Interstellar. I mean, in terms of like,
one.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And then that's a 5-year period he did all of those in.
Yeah. And the span of directors that he worked with.
Yeah.
Like there were people on people's bucket lists in that list of directors there. Yeah. And he got to work with them in the space, 6-7 films. Yeah. So, how are you going to top that? And I think that's the question he's going to be asking himself. How am I going to top that?
Yeah. I mean, quite simply, he's not, is he? But it's whether you can try and start getting back there again. And I don't mean that in a totally, dismissive way. But how do you top that? There's not many actors that have had that run that you can think of, I'm sure. You think of your De Niro's and Pacino's at some points in the career. I think of DiCaprio maybe just sort of around the same time or just pre-McConaughey. But there's not many people that have had that kind of run where just creatively everything was singing, and then you get something like True Detective, which revolutionizes TV, or you get Interstellar, which is one of the biggest movies of all time, and with Chris Nolan, and you just can't compete with that again, can you?
No.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, we still love him.
We do. Yeah. And we'll still be watching all of his films for the good and the bad and the ugly, as I think I will find out as we go.
Yeah.
You guys, though, what's going with you? And what have we got anything lined up? Have we got anything left to do? Oh, we do. The Lost Bus, don't we? That is the next thing we're doing.
Yeah. We'll be back for that in however many films time that is.
Yeah, right towards the tail end.
Yeah. Very, very different vibes.
Very different vibes. And I'm excited to talk about it.
I'm excited for you to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've saved that portion of your own podcast on it. So I've listened to the other things in that episode, and then I've paused, and it's just sat there and it's sat there and it's sat there. And so I've watched it myself, and then I'll listen to what you guys have to say in that episode.
Nice. Oh, I appreciate it. And we'll try and bring some insights on the visual effects in that one as well. Because, that's something we don't always talk about, because obviously Matthew McConaughey isn't the one doing the VFX, but wow, what an interesting thing for him to do things, with more VFX and other things like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, he's delving into that world, isn't he, around that time? Because he's just been in, a very small role, but I am going to cover it. He'd been in Deadpool and Wolverine in the movie before. So,
oh yeah, I forgot. A blip.
Yeah, he really is a blip, but a great excuse to watch that film again anyway.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you both so much, and I appreciate you making the time for me, because I know life's really busy, and we look forward to the day when there may be, sometime in the future, whether it's 6 months, a year, whatever it be, we'll be here for the next content that comes out from you both too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're on a hiatus at the moment.
Yeah, it's taking a little bit of a life break, but that's okay.
But yeah, we may be back. Yeah.
Well, you've got a ready-made built-in audience if you make that decision, haven't you? That's the good thing.
Oh,
thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Entertainment and education. That's exactly what I feel like I get every time I talk to the ever-excellent Tim and Amber. I'm sure you agree. My thanks to them both for another fantastic chat. My thanks to you too, listeners, for your continued support, engagement and participation as we journey through the McConaissance. That was Free State of Jones. Next up in a fortnight, I'm going to be joined by Matt Rogers to discuss Eminem's vocal performance as Beetle in Travis Knight's Kubo and the Two Strings, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Cut.